So it's a big mystery. Who actually leaked those details of a cabinet split over the issue of stripping Australian citizenship from suspected terrorists? Let's have a look to how the politicians ran this.
I refer to the unprecedented cabinet leak of national security.
False reports.
There's certainly been some very accurate statements made in newspapers in relation to discussions that were had in Cabinet.
Does the Prime Minister agree with his Communications Minister that the Cabinet is a shambles?
I don't leak from Cabinet meetings, and I didn't leak from the last one either.
If people can't abide by the confidentiality of the Cabinet room, then they should leave the Cabinet.
Look, leaking from Cabinet is a shameful thing to do.
More interested in political gossip and trivia than they are in strengthening the national security of our nation.
The group realisation of the significance of what had happened, Mr Abbott's quoted as saying, was a come to Jesus moment.
Well, Jesus should be in all of our hearts.
He's a church-going man. Joining us with his take on all of this is Insider's host Barrie Cassidy. Barrie, good morning.
Good morning.
As someone who has a long-time connection to the church, do you know what a come to Jesus moment is?
Barnaby Joyce described it as a very serious moment when serious matters are discussed. I think it's a bit like being taken to the principal's office. It's the moment when you know you're in trouble.
Oh, so when you call to Jesus' office?
Yes.
Yes, the big principal.
Yes.
Well, they may have been called to the principal's office, but it nonetheless hasn't stopped the leaks.
No, look, it's Ian McFarlane's contribution there was magic, wasn't it? Tony Abbott has been dismissing this, all of this gossip that's swirling around, and he's pretty accurate. Yeah. But it's... you have to go back to why the leaks occurred, and this is what's most troubling for Tony Abbott, is because the ministers felt they were ambushed by this material. Not enough ministers had the material, the discussion papers around this issue, and so it appears as if it was leaked to draw attention to the process. And this is something that got Tony Abbott into trouble in the past, and it's still there.
In your column for The Drum this morning, amongst other things, you look at Malcolm Turnbull's contribution, that very lengthy media conference he held after that cabinet meeting, and you also argue that it may have actually lost him support within the party, given the stance he's taken.
Well, probably has. When you consider that Tony Abbott is now, he's whipping up the backbench to campaign effectively against those ministers who are concerned about overreach on this issue of citizenship. And Malcolm Turnbull is the one person, and I include the Labor Party in this, the one person who is out there trying to nuance this issue and trying to explain it to the public. And he gives it a sort of a geographical sense as well by arguing that the United States would never do this. They would never strip citizenship. That in Canada they do, but the minister can only act if there has been a conviction. So he's running that argument against the weight of opinion on the backbench, which is a gutsy thing to do. Yeah. Courageous, you might say, in Yes Minister, but yes. But that's the way he's chosen to do. And he went further than that. He talked about how it's almost the mob rule thing. He says the democracy. To say that majority rules exclusively is tyranny. That's not democracy. That people get a vote and they elect a parliament, but then the rule of law acts as a constraint on the parliament, and that's not the kind of nuance that you're getting from Labor at the moment. In fact, Bill Shorten has signed up to this in principle, even though Tony Abbott has just egged him on the whole time. And then when he finally signed up, Tony Abbott, how did he reward him for reaching across the aisle? He said, oh, well, today you signed up, yesterday you were calling it dog whistling. So he actually rubbed his nose in it. He reached across and gave this bipartisan support, and he rubbed his nose. So, really, it's both leaders look diminished as a result of that.
And apart from looking diminished, in a more general sense, how does Bill Shorten emerge from all of this, particularly given the way the polls are going for him?
He emerges as somebody who is terrified of the issue and terrified of the way that Tony Abbott prosecutes this issue. And I think there's division within the Labor Party as to whether they should acquiesce in quite the way they do.
Now, let's go to the news of this morning, those claims of corruption and spying on Nauru. Obviously, that'll play out in various forms over the course of the day.
It's a strange one because the agency, the security agency is denying it, but they do seem to concede that somebody was freelancing, that somebody acted alone Now, why? For what purpose? You can understand why they'd keep a close eye on her while she's around the area itself, but why would they need to trail her back to the hotel and watch who's coming and going or whatever? It's a very odd one. There's something about it that doesn't quite fit.
And the senator in question is Sarah Hanson-Young. She was given the code name Raven by the security officials. She has subsequently now this morning changed her Twitter profile to
the Raven.
capitalise on that.
So she doesn't seem to be too knocked about by the experience.
No, she wasn't available to speak to us this morning. Apparently she's unwell, but I'm sure we'll hear from her later on in the day. Look, the issue, though, that has now come to the feet of Senator George Brandis, possibly as Attorney-General, but clearly also Julie Bishop as Foreign Minister, over just how scrutinised that letter from Man Haron Monis, the Sydney siege gunman, was, is now going to be a very uncomfortable political difficulty for the government.
There are real questions now to be raised about this.
The background for those who came in late, Barry.
Yeah, it's the letter that Man Monis wrote to the government, and then the government dismissed it as not of much consequence.
After having said that it was looked at.
Yeah, but they said that the review that was done at departmental level not only looked at the letter, but agreed with the government that they really didn't need to take it any further. So they somehow imagined that it had been looked at and a ruling had been made on it. So now we discover that the letter didn't go to the review at all. So the questions that the government now need to answer is why didn't the letter go to the review in the first place, as it should have done? How is it that this departmental official understood that it did? And at what point did George Brandis understand that they got it wrong, that the Parliament had been misled? What did he, at the time that he was reading poetry in the Senate estimates, did he understand at that point that they'd misled both houses of Parliament, or the Senate committee and the House of Representatives? So all of that is important. They're important questions, and at some point the government will need to answer them, though Parliament's not sitting, so they've got some time.
You can only imagine, though, that someone like Julie Bishop, who takes a great deal of care to dot her I's and cross her T's, would be furious about this.
It's not the first time that that's happened to her, that she's had to represent somebody and then she's been landed with something like this. So you have to sympathise with her over this. But it's George Brandis who needs to answer the critical question as to why the letter didn't go to the review in the first place. OK,
Barry, to your wooden spooner, and it's quite a special one this week.
Look, it seems like a joke. But it was PM reported it, so it's got to be correct. And it was evidence led at the Senate estimates during the week. But the Department of Defence sold a minibus.
Yes.
Inside it was a fuel card. That fuel card subsequently racked up a bill of $585,000. Now, they haven't been able to identify the perpetrator here, but they assume some sort of commercial organisation got hold of it, because how could you rack up a bill of $585,000?
Shall we hear from Defence Secretary Jeffrey Brown?
Sure.
Let's have a listen.
My memory serves me correctly, it's about 12 months, but I'd rather take that on notice.
I know petrol's gone down recently, but that's a lot of fuel. It
was almost on a commercial scale, the use of the card, Senator.
It's a lot of big trips as well. That's Melbourne, Perth, Adelaide, Darwin.
More than half a million. It had to be a series of vehicles.
Doesn't someone at some point look at the bills coming in, or look at the receipts, whatever, and go, hang on a minute?
Yeah.
And just
if you lost your credit card as an individual, you cancel it straight away.
Absolutely.
This fuel card, $500,000.
Or if an ABC cab charge card was suddenly racking up 500, wouldn't someone when the organisation say,
isn't there a paper trail? Surely they know who bought the bus. Now maybe they're claiming that the card was stolen from the bus. Who knows? But it's a lot of money. It seems extraordinary.
It does.
Well, so take your wooden spoon and enjoy it. And you got a guest this week?
Josh Frydenberg, the Assistant Treasurer. So I'll try not to talk down the Australian economy and act like a clown. But
you're not a clown, Barry.
No one should talk down the Australian economy.
No clowns here.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.